I'm George Gonzalez. I'm obsessed with making games. I love it. And today we're going to go over leveling up, gaining experience as a level one developer. What you're trying to do now is trying to gain skills, experience in the field so that you can become hireable, whether it's hireable by another company or being able to make games on your own. In order to make games, you have to know certain things. And so today we're going to go over scene transitions. But rather than just telling you how to do a type of scene transition, which I will at the end of the video, is I want you to understand the principles, what it takes, so that you can understand your decisions. When watching tutorials, when learning things, you always have to take into account what your goals are. My goal for these videos and this YouTube channel is to make sure that you are successful as a game developer, that your time is not wasted, that you learn the things that you need to learn at the time that you need them. I don't want you being stuck in tutorial hell, making a game for 3 years. You can make games now. And you can make games within 2 months. You can make a bunch of prototypes and level up and either be hireable, make some good money as a game developer, or make your own games because they make money because people love them. Okay, you can do either one. Scene transitions. Brackeys has a great tutorial on scene transitions. Okay, the only thing that I'm not too fond of, and I'll link the link regardless because it's really good if you're doing PC or mobile, is he does it by doing animations. He does animations and then you control the animation via script. I prefer the method I'm going to show you. I prefer this method, which uses a script. And it's not even mine. I grabbed it from a template. And so I want to share that with you. I'll try to link the script below or put it on Discord. If you want to get access to any of the scripts that I use for my game, Magic Hunters, which is the game I'm working on right now, you're welcome to join our Discord. It's on the description below. It's Magic Hunters is basically me being completely transparent about what I do and how I do it. Because I want to share with developers what it really takes to make a game and level up. And aside from that, if I want to make sure that when you learn something that it's valuable, that it pays big dividends for you. And one of the things that I want to make sure is that you learn the principles that don't expire, that regardless of what engine you use, whether it's Unity, Unreal, Godot, whatever it is that you're doing is not wasted. That you are learning how to problem solve, how to understand topics, and do critical thinking so that you can later on apply that wherever you go, whatever engine, and be able to have that skill in your tool belt. Okay, so scene transitions. Okay, I prepared this Miro board with different topics that are important to scene transitions. These 6 components will change how you do scene transition. And at the end of the video, again, I'll show you how to do this step by step. The first one that is very binary, it's non-VR or VR. And the reason why I say this is because VR is a whole different medium. And with UI and scene transitions, it keeps evolving and there's things that are different. Okay, so how you do scene transitions affect a lot, especially VR players because they have the headset on, and as you're changing it, if you don't do any fade in, fade out, it's jarring. Okay, and sometimes it creates motion sickness. Okay, so that's a big one. So just want to get that in so you understand. You might not be doing VR, and so that's okay. Mobile and PC have similar ideas because you're using a canvas and a camera, and so it's locked to the camera. You don't need to worry about it. VR is pretty similar, the same. So this is very small. But with scene transitions in VR, sometimes you have physics-based, or sometimes the player will fall through, and so you have to be aware of that. Or moving the player or not, how do they know where they're at? Okay, and then the next one is a matter of preference, but it will change it will change your whole game. Okay, you can choose to have a player controller that's constant across all scenes. So then when the scene goes down and you go to a new scene, the same character controller is moved across, so it doesn't get destroyed with the scene. And that means that you have to be aware of what it has, what it doesn't. Oftentimes, the negatives or the cons again for this is that you will have scripts that you're relying on that either are not supposed to be constant, and they are because you're bringing them in with your player, or 2, you might be referencing them, or you might be subscribed to an event or constantly updating on update. You're like, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. And then all of a sudden that thing is gone when it goes to the next scene. And so a lot of times when you have a constant controller, you have to disable a bunch of things and then enable them again. And so disable and enabling and there's a lot of bugs that happen because you don't realize that you have to. And so my advice with these is that you are aware of this from the get-go. And as you're putting in things on the character, that you're setting up a manager system where you can just on when the scene starts transitioning that you turn all these things off so it doesn't update. Okay. The new character controller, it means that every time you have a new scene, there's a new controller there. The con with this is that you have to always have it on, or else nothing's gonna happen. And then the other thing is that you always have to load in the information that you're looking for. So if you have 50 health, you have to make sure that that's being updated before you move on, and then update the health to be 50 or whatever it is. So variables have to be constantly updated, which is fine. I think sometimes that's a pro, especially for cosmetics and things like that, because regardless of what you're doing, you have to. So I think I prefer the new controller type for multiple reasons. One is if I'm testing a scene immediately, or I need to prototype something, I can just drag and drop the controller, hit play, and I can test that scene or that level. The other thing that I love about this is that it puts you in a mode where you're starting from scratch every time. So even if there's a bug where your controller breaks and you're able to reset it, it makes it a lot easier so that the bugs are not persistent. Whereas if you have a constant controller and there's a bug with the controller, it will continue and continue to the point that the game is just not playable. Whereas with a new controller, it's not game breaking unless it stops your movement or something. Then it's game breaking still. But it's really less prone to baggage, if that makes sense. Okay, so I prefer the new controller, just as a thought. Like, don't worry about it too much. You can learn both. And then there's single player and multiplayer. This is huge because we're gonna start learning single player. I think that's a good place to start. My advice is to not start multiplayer mechanics first, because multiplayer mechanics could expound exponentially. So the level difficulty is not a multiplier. It is an exponent, because you cannot start learning scene transitions, for example, with multiplayer games if you don't understand what's happening with the regular scene transitions, because it'll just add on top of that and it just creates havoc. And so what I would advise as you're leveling up and gaining skills, if you are adamant about doing multiplayer games, which is fine, is every time you learn a skill, make sure that you set time aside to learn about the multiplayer side of that same skill. So for example, pulling, guns, shooting, scene loading, character controller, cosmetic. There's a ton. Every skill that you learn in single player mode, you'll have to figure out how it relates to multiplayer, because it changes in multiplayer game. And sometimes it's tiny, small, or sometimes it's huge, but it's important that you know that that's there. You still want to learn the single player aspect of it, so that you get an understanding of what's going on. Okay. So my advice today, we're going to talk about single player. I do have a scene transition tutorial for multiplayer games. Every Monday, I do Multiplayer Monday, where I share some skills that I've learned in multiplayer mechanics. Okay, so that is something that's available. One thing, for example, that I've learned even recently for multiplayer scene transitions is that with Photon Fusion, for example, I had to learn how to load the same scene. So if you wanted to load a private scene and it was the same scene that you were going into, I couldn't just load the scene because it was already loaded. So Unity didn't trigger the load mechanism. Everything was already there. And so what I had to do is I had to do a temporary empty scene and come back to the other scene to fix that. It was a minor thing, but I've learned. I gained experience. Now I have to think about loading the same scene in a multiplayer game, which is a different task, right? And so let's go about learning this. Okay, so single player, new controller, and I'm going to do VR for right now, but the same thing applies. I have the link to Bracky's video if you want to do non-VR. It's the same thing. The first thing that I love doing is in here. I have this fader mesh, this black mesh unlit shader, and then in here's the fader script. And this fader script makes everything easier, so I don't have to think about it. I will copy paste this for you guys. It's nothing proprietary. It's just a template that I found, and it's just a fade in, fade out, and it might look a lot confusing. It's just a bunch of coroutines. And they fade in and fade out for you, so you don't have to think about it. And we have this scene A and scene B, just like in Bracky's video. And I have them in here at 30 and 31. Okay, and we're gonna go over this scene. Let's go into this scene. Okay, so how do we start this scene from scratch? Okay, so I have this version number loading. This is just text. Okay, you don't need it. I have the title in here, and then I have, if I hide this, I have a directional light. I have the scene art. That's just the same one as the loading, right? Like I have just a bunch of props. It's just art, 3D assets. Okay, so you drag and drop the 3D assets. Let me do it again. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna position it right here. This is the origin for XR. It's the XR origin script. I need a player, and then I have a camera. Let me just copy this one because it's just a camera. Bring it over. So this camera, just main camera, track post driver, fader script. So this is just to track the center eye and whatnot. I'm gonna delete that. It's the same. I have this fade target. It's, again, like I said, it's a mesh render. It's a plane. So I have a plane with an unlit shader. It has a color. So that's the name of the component, the property that I have to control. Okay, so what happens is the start fade level. If I set this to 0, and I'm gonna remove this scene loader for now. Yeah, or let's just do that. Okay, so there's no fade. If I hit play, it will just start at 0, meaning it'll be completely faded out. See? So it's 0 transparency. Okay, if I set the fader to 1, it will set it up to start black. Okay, and that's what I want. Usually with the scene transitions, you want the player to be completely black. Okay, it didn't do it. Come on. Oh, because it's not in the right target, or let me make sure. Okay, so I forgot to set the camera player. Okay. Okay, so the target is there. I don't know if it matters where it is. Fader, target 2, color 1. Okay. Should set the fade to 1. B. Okay. It's working. Okay, so it's at 1 and it's black. Okay. So now, what do we have here? What is the scene loader? Okay. In the previous build, I went from scratch. We can start again if you want to. I'll just copy it again, or we can figure it out as we go. So we have obviously this fader. So we have a fader script. That's the fader script and the scene index. Okay. Next scene, the scene. In Bracky's video, he goes over and he grabs the current scene. You need scene management in here. And he grabs the current index and +1. Okay. But in this scenario, we're not trying to go from this scene to the next one, which it could still work. But I want to make sure that I give you flexibility to go wherever you want to go. So that's why we have in here. Save it. Oh. Okay. You'll see in here, saves. I can change it. So I think it was 31 if I go. And the fader target is this one. Come on. This is script. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to on awake. So let me show you what happens first. What we can do, because this is what I did before, and I want to make sure I show you guys. We start the coroutine, and we grab the fader, and let's take 10 seconds. The cool thing about this script is that it takes care of all the animation. You don't have to animate it. If you want to do more cool transitions and animate them, you can use Bracky's videos to do cool transitions. This is mainly for like a quick, right? Like I want to make sure that you understand the topic without spending too much time. Because at the beginning, you don't want to worry about like making it all cool. Like scene transition is the least of your worries when making games. Okay. You don't want to spend too much time. You're trying to cut costs. You're trying to be efficient with your time. And so I'm going to give you this script because I love it. I use it. I put it in. It works. If I want to do something more polished, I can take the time to do that. Right now, it doesn't really matter. As long as the player fades out, fades in, does whatever it needs to, fades out, and the player continues to play, it's just fine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're not going to do a scene transition. We're just going to fade out. Okay, we saw that it was set to black to begin with. So we need to activate this fade. And so when I hit play, you'll see it fades out. Okay. Now, if you want to improve the animation or how long it takes, you can do that. The next thing that we're going to do is the cool thing about this coroutine is that you can now do your scene transition and you can do the fade out. Then we're going to wait for 10 seconds and then we're going to fade in. You can do, instead of waiting for 10 seconds, you can load your stuff. So you can load your stuff here, load, and then wait, and then fade in, and then wait some more, or whatever you want to do. It's you can do it however you want. Okay. The other thing that you can do instead of doing one coroutine. You can do a function where you come back and forth. That's what I do in here. For example, I'm waiting. So see how I have a public function that says to next scene. Okay. And in here, I have different ways to activate that. Okay. Whether the player triggers, I have a scene index that I'm going to. I have a connection data. So I have scriptable objects or things that components that I put in here to know which scene I'm going to. Okay. So I have a lot of preset stuff that I do to transition. But the main top thing is that it's the same thing. It's just for network solutions. And here I have scene manager.load scene. And then I give it the scene index and it will load it. Okay. And so we're gonna load, I'm gonna remove this. And we're gonna look, I'm gonna show you the next scene, scene B. We have scene B. It's the same thing. We have art, assets, directional light, a plane. Honestly, I don't need the plane either. And then it's our origin, again, the same origin, the fader, the same script, same rig. But again, like I said, we are not keeping the previous rig. And so I could do a different rig in here if I wanted to. Okay. If I loaded this, I could have my VR rig, this rig here that we can use. Okay. We can do this too. Okay. So I can go in here, and that's why I like this setup, because I can just add a different type of rig without messing up anything. Okay. So we have this local player fade in, and we have to make sure that I'm using the correct one. Okay. And this load player in is for you to, it's the same thing. We're grabbing the fader script. We're saying, okay, at the start, we're going to load the player. We're going to wait for 2 seconds. And the reason why I do this is because I'm going to, the player's coming in. Unity is going to say everything's ready to load. But I want to wait 2 seconds, and then we're going to fade out. Okay. This gives the player time to adjust or to position itself, especially in this one, the player's going to fall because it's a physics-based rig. So let me make sure that here, you're going to see the player's going to fall. And 2 seconds might be too soon. Let me make sure, did we? Okay, so the player's gonna fall, and it's still gonna be on the ground a little, but let's see, let's add like 10 seconds, or let's add 5 seconds in here, okay? This is just to load the player in, okay? Super simple, nothing too crazy, right? You're gonna see the transitions. You have scene A and scene B, okay? On one side it's a scene, and then in here you'll see this thing fade in, fade out. So now we're gonna make sure that everything's set. Fade in, fade out. Next scene. This takes forever, so I'm gonna do 5 seconds, and that's it. Like, that's all you need to understand for scene loading. Is that fade in is like your magic trick. It is so nice because once you fade out, you can do whatever you need to without the player knowing, and it's really nice. Okay, so it's gonna finish loading, 5 seconds, and then it's gonna start fading in again. And then it'll transition to the scene. So you'll see. Okay, so it's going to black, and it's taking forever. Like, you can make it go faster if you want. And see how the player fell? And now we're just waiting, and then it fades out. Okay. Obviously, now I know that it was too long of a wait, but it's okay. If you're loading a lot of stuff, you might want to wait more. So it depends. And you can have text if you want. Brackeys, again, shows you a way to not just fade in one thing, but multiple things together. That is another nice thing you can do. Okay. The main thing that I want you to understand, like, again, over this is like the decisions you're gonna make, the experience you're gonna gain. Once you figure it out, you have the specific skill sets. And if you wanna broaden your horizon, like your experience, and say I can do both, you can take the time to do a scene transition with a new controller every time, or with one that's constant, like make sure it's not destroyed and make sure it carries across. I've done both, but that's something that you can not put in your resume, but something that you can talk about if it comes up on a job interview. So these are things that you can do. You can learn, and you can understand what your knowledge is, your experience. So this is what's going to get you out of tutorial hell, because you're learning, you're checking off boxes, you're grouping, you're writing down the things you're learning. Somewhere you have to put these down, and these are skills that you have on your tool belt. Next week, we're going to go over character controller, because I think that's more important. Someone asked about this, so I wanted to share this scene transitions so that other people can learn about scene transitions. The main thing is, for you to win, like, you just need to hone down on what you're trying to learn. And there's not one way of doing everything. Like, there's not a correct way. It's just what you know and what you've learned from experience, right? And so that is what counts, is that you did it, you put it on a build, you can test it out like we just went through it, you can gain experience and add one more thing to your bucket of knowledge, what you know about development. We'll see you next week when we do character controllers.